p.m., so we'll call the meeting to order. And if everyone will please stand and take the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time then we will do the reorganization of the election board officers and turn this over to Mr. Lippy.
Okay. Do I have any nominations for president?
I've nominated Lisa Berry.
Second. All right, first and second for Lisa Berry for president. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? We'll close the ballot. All in favor of Lisa Berry serving as president, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I'm honored again, and you'll do a good job. We'll then look for a motion for vice president.
I nominate Keith Folkman for vice president. Seconded.
Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Can I have a motion to close the nominations and pass unanimous ballot?
Move to close the nominations for pass and unanimous ballot.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Clerk.
I nominate Jeff Isaacson as clerk.
Second. It's a, Carl almost wrote a minutes out.
We just like we're nice.
Are there any other nominations?
Fine.
Any other nominations? Can I have a motion to close the nominations then and pass unanimous ballot?
Someone.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. We would need an assistant clerk. That's in the event that Jeff wasn't here or couldn't make it up to the office to sign one of the many documents he'll have to sign.
I'll nominate Dick Wagner. He's done a good job.
Second.
Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? The motion is closed.
Move to close and unanimous ballot.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Treasurer.
I'll nominate David Kaczynski for treasurer. Second.
Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Can I have a motion to close the nominations and pass unanimous ballot then?
Make a motion to close nomination and pass unanimous ballot.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. You all received that committee assignments page. If you wish to be off the committee, let me know that. If you wish to add yourself to a committee, let me know that. Jeff, we can talk about that, where you might have your interest to participate if you want to, and we'll finalize that for next meeting then.
Now that we know where the officers are, we have the diplomas for graduation, so we need you to sign on the correct line for graduation day.
So they
You can
can,
either do it tonight, or the diplomas are, you can either do it tonight, or you can stop in the office sometime and sign it, because that's to sign by graduation.
the school board will convene to close session tonight to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility under Wisconsin statutes 19.85, Paren 1, Paren C, considering a special education teacher, a math interventionist teacher, a head cook, a custodian, a high school, middle school, principal and the middle school boys basketball coach. We then have the Spanish and ELL departments here to give us a presentation on their programs.
We have Mrs. Brett, Mrs. Anderson, and Mrs. Saunders, our Spanish department.
All right, Sarah Brandt, I'll start. So I teach middle school Spanish and Spanish 1. So middle school, the first opportunity for students to have Spanish begins in 7th grade, and all middle school students, unless they're a pull-out kid, that would be for reading intervention, special ed, some sort of special programming, take Spanish in the middle school. It's different than at the high school level because we're on an every other day schedule in the middle school. We're not an everyday class. And in the middle school, I have more of an emphasis on input than hearing language, experiencing language versus their own output. Because it takes a long time. You have to be exposed for a while before you can actually produce. So there's more of an emphasis on input versus their output. I use a comprehensible input method in the middle school using Nuestra Historia. And so this is sort of it's a CI presentation. It's called comprehensible input. And what we do is you give them language at slightly above their level so that they understand a lot of the words and can get the gist of the rest. And that gets them thinking about how language works. So we focus on high frequency verbs and vocabulary, so language that you're going to use the most and encounter the most, especially if you're talking about yourself or those immediately around you. So it's more of a focus on exposure to language versus explicit grammar instruction. That happens later because we're trying to prep them for if you're going on to college and you're testing, you need to know some of that stuff. So we do some grammar, but it's more embedded and it's not quite as intense. And then at the high school level, Spanish 1 is open to anyone at the high school. So if you haven't taken Spanish and you want to take Spanish 1, you can. I typically, though, see freshmen, and I get about 75% of them, sometimes a little more, sometimes less, but around that range. Because a lot of kids are looking at going out to school, and if they're looking at a 4-year school, a lot of them look for foreign language at least 1 or 2 years. So in Spanish 1, so Spanish 1 is really the base, and this is different from middle school because I also get those parochial kids that have had no exposure. So that's why I don't do the same thing between the two of them. I could start with my textbook in 7th and 8th grade, but then I have a group of kids that are ahead, I have a group of kids that are behind, and this way, as things come up, you know, the students that had it in middle school are more prepared and they're familiar, but it sort of helps level the playing field a little bit because there aren't enough of those parochial students or outside students to have their own class. And so we really work on basic pronunciation, intonation, how to form sentences, a variety of sentence structures because it's different if you're making a statement, if you're asking a question, if things are negative. Noun, adjective, article, agreement. Spanish is a gendered language, so kids have to learn that and what that looks like and all the parts that go with it. Present tense verb forms, and we look at them in pretty much so all their forms. And then vocab is centered around topics that are relatable to students, so we look at things that they do, hobbies, activities, things they like, school, because they're all here every day. Family, shopping, home, and food. That's a popular one. And then we use the Avancemos 1 textbook right now, plus a variety of resources and authentic materials. So if we're talking about family, I give them, you know, an infographic about what families look like in Mexico. And authentic materials are materials that are made by Spanish speakers for Spanish speakers. So I don't expect my kids to know everything that shows up on them, but I want them to be able to identify stuff there. So that's what happens in Spanish 1. And Anna will take over her.
Nice to meet you, Anna Anderson. And I teach the high school level. And usually Spanish 2, we get about 22 to 24 kids of the students that Ms. Brandt has had. And then we use the same book, Avancemos. So like she does the first part of the book and then I'll finish up the rest of the book so that it's consistent. In Spanish 3, we get about 12 to 14 kids, sometimes 13 depending. And then by Spanish 4, I have 6 to 8. So each year, the numbers are a little bit smaller, but the children are especially wanting to do well in all of their areas, and they're, especially some of them going for the advanced AP classes. So sometimes there's not enough time in the day for them to take the Spanish 4. This year, I just had a wonderful group, though. I had 9, and then one went on to do AP Spanish 5 because he was so good. So we just kind of see, depending on the year, the numbers fluctuate a little bit. And so I just try to give you an idea of what I do. So what Ms. Brandt sets them up very nicely in Spanish 1. When I continue in Spanish 2, we kind of review the present tense, but then we go into past tense. We do ing, we do reflexive verbs, we do commands, we do some more of the same vocab, but we add to what they already know. Then in Spanish 3, we do the present tense, the past tense, the perfect tense, we throw in the future tense, and the adverbs and more commands. And then by Spanish 4, there are 17 different tenses, just to give you an idea. We've hit them all this year. It's just amazing what they can do at that level. Conditional, present perfect, subjunctive, past participles. And what I'm trying to do is push the kids just a little bit to do, like in Spanish 2, a little bit more than they have done in the past and so on, so that by Spanish 4 they feel more comfortable being able to start to switch between the different present tense and past tense. And then I use other resources. We're using Avancemos, and we have listening along with the book. And then I use novels, the book David just finished, and other books like La Guerra Sucia. We do easy readers, short stories, movies that kind of show cultural aspects of the Spanish language as well as the actual language being used. And then BBC, the new series, we do computer games, different classroom games, and short videos, just to kind of help them go, oh yeah, this is something people really use in the real world. And I want to mention that, it'll be Dina next, but you do the Pledge of Allegiance at each of your meetings. And so when the kids come in at the beginning of the year, that's something that we learn. We do it first in English or Spanish, our Pledge of Allegiance. And then we also talk about like the Mexican Pledge of Allegiance. And so kind of to try to tie it in and show the kids that this is something we do, and they do it also in other countries, just to give you an example. And if you'd like, I have homework tonight, so I can give you a sheet. If not, that's okay. Sorry, I didn't bring the chocolate.
I can bring your homework.
Yeah, right. Hola, buenas tardes. Soy Dina Sanders. Soy una maestra aquí en la escuela de Sevastopol. Yo empecé aquí en 2018 y yo voy a dar una presentación de lo que hacemos en inglés como segundo lenguaje. Were you scared that I was going to give the whole presentation in Spanish? Anyway, the EL program is a bridge between EL families, and it's a bridge to school and community, because we have families who are coming here who, of course, have language barriers many times, and they don't understand the systems that we have in place in the school or in the community. The Sevastopol EL program expanded in the 2018-2019 school year. That was the first time that I came to Sevastopol. And the EL department serves 40 to 50 students, K through 12, at any given time. We have some variability in numbers because some students move in and move out, depending on what's going on with their parents, what work is available, what housing is available. Most of our Sevastopol ELs are Spanish speaking, and most of them are born in this country. The EL personnel, at the elementary, we have native speaker Claudia Baramona. She is our district school and home liaison. She also works with Title I. That's something new this year. She's been working with Title I to help our elementary ELs with their reading skills. We also have Julie Salisbury. She provides in-class support in the elementary.
and she creates and teaches small group lessons, particularly with the upper elementary. At the secondary, we have Mary Jackson. She's a part-time employee. She provides in-class support and translation. And we also have Anna Anderson. In addition to teaching Spanish, she helps us out with some in-class support, translation, and she teaches an EL course. And then there's me, Dina Saunders. I supervise the program, I provide translation, in-class support, and I teach a couple of EL courses. So a little bit about EL students and language acquisition. The general rule is that it takes 1 to 3 years to be able to converse socially with your peers. It takes 5 to 7 years to develop academic proficiency, despite being immersed in English. You can see this takes a long time. Using these guidelines, students who begin their education in United States schools in grades K through 2 should be exiting by the end of middle school. For example, we have a kindergartner who begins here at Sevastopol or another school in the United States, 5 to 7 years, they should start exiting in grades 5, 6, and 7. So are we achieving our proficiency goals? Are we exiting those students on time? Well, yes and no. Since the EL program expanded in 2018-2019, the collaborative effort among Sevastopol staff, EL staff, and families has resulted in 3 to 5 students exiting the EL program each year, which is awesome, that's great. Half of the current 4th, 5th, and 6th graders have exited the program, which means they are proficient enough to learn in the regular classroom alongside their English-only peers. While we are successfully reducing the number of long-term ELs, we are facing a new challenge in the secondary schools. This graphic shows the number of students we had in EL in 2018-2019, the first year the program expanded. The yellow that you see here indicates students who were basically non-English speaking and needed intensive help. So in 2018-19, of the 50 EL students, 6 of them needed intensive help, mostly in the elementary. And you can see that here. The other numbers are for this year, 2021-2022. In 2021-2022, of the 50 EL students, 9 need intensive help, almost all at the secondary level. So you see a difference of 3 students. You know, that doesn't seem bad on the surface. 6 students, 3 students who need intensive help who don't speak English. Should be okay. Does it really matter? Well, remember, it takes 1 to 3 years to be able to converse socially with your peers. It takes 5 to 7 years to develop academic proficiency in the second language. Our older newcomers, the ones that come to us 15, 16, 17 years old, they don't have the luxury of time. You add 5 years to 15, and that's 20. Sure, they can stay in school till they're 21, but there's a lot of reasons for them not to stay in school when they turn 18. And also they need almost one-on-one support for the first year, maybe the first year and a half. So I put together a side-by-side comparison of what's involved in supporting newcomers at the elementary versus supporting newcomers at the secondary level. You can see at the elementary, all the elementary students are learning to read and write English. It's not just the EL students. EL staff and families collaborate with 1 or 2 main teachers per grade level. And the educational gaps are usually not as wide. If you have a kindergartner who comes into Sevastopol not speaking English, alongside a kindergartner who only speaks English, their educational gap is not that wide. There's not that much to fill, not that many gaps to fill. And generally, they will catch up. Also, there are fewer extracurricular offerings and social opportunities outside of school. One thing we do as the EL department is we not only work on academic proficiency, but we also try to keep the families and the students involved in the community. So we do try to help when there are field trips. We try to communicate with parents if there are discipline issues, Mighty Pioneers participation, things like that. We do have a hand in helping with that. So that's a support at the elementary. Looking at the secondary side, the EL students who come to us relatively late in their educational careers, at age 15, 16, or 17, they have double duty. They have to learn English and classroom content at the same time. And they have many teachers, and so do we. We have many teachers and subjects to keep track of. It gets quite interesting when you've got kids in several different classes throughout the school day, especially when some of them get lost because they forgot what their classroom schedule was. You have to try to find them. The older newcomers usually have wide education gaps. Let's see, in the 4 years that I've been here, we've had seven newcomers come to us, and we still have 2 this year, but as you will see, as I have later on, it's just so difficult to stay in school. We end up losing most of them when they turn 18. And some of that is because the task is just overwhelming. A lot of them come in with only maybe 5th grade education, 7th grade education, and then they get put into Algebra 1, where you say, okay, in Spanish, solve for the variable. Well, what's a variable? How do I do this? I learned how to do multiplication, division. I'm pretty good at the rote stuff, but what does this mean, solve for a variable? Or use this information to create an equation. What are you talking about? It gets very difficult. Another challenge we have is that students need to be independent to take on more responsibility, because we expect our older students to be responsible. They're getting ready for the adult world. While we're getting newcomers in that have never used a computer. They're expected to know what Google Classroom is. They're expected to know how to navigate Google Classroom. They're expected to know how to translate things on the computer. So this takes a lot of time. In addition, there are more opportunities for extracurricular activities. There are sports. We want them to be involved in those. We want them to feel like they belong to the school. But then that's another thing that we get involved with. How do we get the kids signed up? How do we make sure they can get to practice? Do they understand where they can get a physical? Do they have insurance? All that kind of fun stuff. Also, I know with Anna was responsible for getting a group of kids to prom.
We had fun.
She and I transported some kids to make sure they got to prom this year. That was fun.
They had never come on.
No, they've never
None
gone.
of them have
It
come
was a great experience for them and for us.
Yeah.
You stayed the whole night. I just drove people there. And full proficiency is not usually possible under 5 years of school. So they're already coming in looking at the time running out. They only have maybe 3 years till they turn 18. What are their chances of becoming proficient if they have a lot of educational gaps? And as I said before, they often have a high dropout rate of not including this year's students, but the 4 we've had in the past, all 4 of them dropped out when they turned 18. And this isn't a challenge that's just Sevastopol's challenge. I was at an EL network meeting today in Green Bay with CISA 7. It's a challenge everywhere in the state of Wisconsin, I'm sure in the country. What to do with students who need something different, a different pathway. And I'm fortunate enough that I'm at Sevastopol because I have the freedom to try to be creative. You know, Melissa and I have been talking to people, community people, trying to figure out different ways to give these students something so that if they do decide to drop out at 18, they're not just left floundering. For example, I don't know if this is going to work, but we're working on a project with NWTC and the CNA program. Hopefully, if all the pieces work together, I will be able to support a couple of students, some of my older students who are signed up for the CNA training this fall. I'm hoping that it'll work, that I can help them get through the classwork stuff so they can get to the clinical, and at least they will have a certification that says that they can be a CNA, regardless of whether they graduate from Sevastopol or not. So with this situation, it requires creative thinking, a lot of community involvement, and if you have any ideas, I welcome them, or if you know anybody in the community. I know the hospital has reached out looking for people who speak Spanish to work at the hospital, and that's kind of what started this whole conversation. So hopefully those partnerships will continue. Thank you very much. Gracias. And if you have any questions?
How do you deal with English language learners and state competency testing?
Yeah, that's a good one. Personally, to me, depending on where, if we have older students, they don't mean much because the first year, actually they can be exempted from some of the English language tests the first year because obviously they can't do much of anything. but then after that, their scores are counted, but it's so hard to show growth if they are so far behind. Regarding other students, like the ones that come up through, I guess, more traditional path, they start school in lower elementary and move through, they're pretty much like any other student. We would expect them to keep growing in math and reading, science, math, and social studies. We don't do anything special to prep them. We just, because we feel that the curriculum here is robust enough that they'll have success. And most of them do, especially the ones who exit.
Nina, you mentioned that most of the students' first language was Spanish. Are there some other languages that are first language of our students?
Well, when I first came here, there was a Chinese student.
Okay.
I believe there still is at least one Korean student.
Okay.
And we also had some who spoke Thai, but I think that family has gone.
Ukrainian.
Yes, in Ukrainian, yes. And we also had a Russian student
Okay.
at one time too. That was the first or second year I was here.
Thank you.
I would first of all like to congratulate you. This is a whole thing close to my heart. I never thought it would be, but our lives changed, circumstances changed. So this is a huge thing, and I salute you for taking on this responsibility. And I think it's only going to get larger. It's not going to go away. The area that I find interesting is the parents. Because I've been told that when the kids, let's say they come here in third grade, by the time they get to 17 years old, they do not want to speak Spanish anymore. I don't know if that's true, or is that just
You have an experience with a student about this, both of you.
Well, yeah, we want to start with
Well,
how it began in middle school. Which student are you talking about? What did we mention? She didn't like school. She didn't want to do that.
Oh, yeah.
It depends on the family.
No, and I had her in middle
Kids, but-
school. And her thing the whole time was, I don't know this, I can't do this, I don't speak Spanish, blah, blah, blah.
I don't
Well,
want to look different.
her mom comes in for parent-teacher conferences and doesn't speak English. So she speaks to her mom at home in English, and mom speaks to her in Spanish. So auditorily, like she could listen and understand, but she wasn't forced to speak. So she was really reluctant to talk at all. So then it was a complete, and she obviously did not want to be different from her friends, that I can do this and not, So it was quite you can do, every day was sort of this push, like, you can do it, I know you can, and it's okay if you make errors, and we all make errors, kind of, and that's a theme in middle school. It's okay to make mistakes, we're all gonna make mistakes.
And then she
Don't get
moved.
hung up.
I think she went to Sturgeon
She
Bay
went to
for a
Sturgeon
while,
Bay.
and she came back this year as a junior, and I got her in fourth year. And I don't know, something just clicked, and she's been talking in Spanish, and she got a job this summer in United Way, and she's so proud because she's going to use her Spanish and work with the families. So here's a kid that went from, oh, I don't want to do this, to, I got a job, Miss Anderson, I'm going to use my Spanish.
Because it's such a value.
I know, and that's like keep telling the kids.
Being bilingual,
Well, and they say there's studies out there too about bilingual students. They normally pick a preferred language, and that's the one that especially as young students.
To pick up a third language?
They pick one language.
Oh, okay.
That's the one they're going to communicate in.
Yeah,
And normally it's the language of your environment.
right.
So their environment, sad but true, is school. Because this is where most kids spend the majority of their time. It's, not that they're not spending time at home, but this is where a lot of things happen, and this is where your peers are at. So it's often really hard to get bilingual students to speak in both languages. Not that they don't know them, and not that they're not capable.
Or if they have siblings at home that are also in school, they usually speak English with their siblings at home, and then they may answer their parents in Spanglish or English or something like that.
We do have a student that's a sophomore this year that knows Korean.
Oh,
Fabulous student in Spanish also, but he worries he can't speak, but he knows so much. But yeah, at home he'll speak Korean, at school he speaks English, and then he's learning Spanish.
well, something that people generally don't realize is that when you have immigrants come
the native language is lost by the third generation. I know that personally. My father came from Portugal. I never learned how to speak Portuguese because he married a woman who didn't know how to speak Portuguese. So it was English only in my home. I never learned really to communicate with my grandparents, which is one reason why I decided to become at first a Spanish teacher and then now an EL teacher. And the same with my cousins. Even with the cousins that married other Portuguese speakers, their children don't speak as much Portuguese as they do. And so I don't think we have to worry about people learning English. Is going to happen whether we want them to or not, I guess. But it's very hard to keep the native language at home. I have some friends that they speak Spanish only at home because they want their kids to be bilingual, but it's very difficult. And it is an asset.
Secondly, I just had this discussion 2 nights ago at the NWTC graduation, and there's something that GB and TC's going to try to bring it up there. That's some type of program for English as your second language, which would be focusing on the parents. Because I really think we need to find a way to get the parents feel more comfortable to participate in the educational discussions about the kids at the school and all that type of stuff.
I think parents would go. I know there was interest when there was a flyer put out a couple years ago that advertised an ESL program at NWTC. I had a lot of parents ask me, but then I found out that it wasn't geared for level 1 and 2, the beginning level students. It was more for those who could speak conversationally and wanted to refine their reading and writing skills. We need to have someone who can teach the basics from level 1.
C. David, C. A. and C. David 1. Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people do have jobs, second
Right.
jobs, sometimes, so the time is the other issue.
Right,
They
right.
really want their kids to be successful. We have one dad come to visit at conferences and sat down with us, and he really wants his children to do well. It's just a matter of how you do that.
Right.
You know, and the first step is showing interest in coming to school, but it's hard for a lot of them because they might work 3 to 10,
Right.
even the shift.
Or the shifts change, too.
Yeah, or they on call. So, but that is a struggle for getting parents.
And just one last question. Why don't we require, if we require the grade school kids, why don't we require them to continue with first year students?
Oh, I'm sorry, what
But
was
Spanish 1 to be a required course? We haven't discussed that. We did discuss when Mrs. Brandt,
yeah,
getting
going
down.
into the elementary,
Elementary.
so
We're not
that
going to
they
take
can
Latin,
start.
that was the base.
Well,
And quite honestly, the best place to start language learning is in the elementary. It's not Spanish. It's before they really know the rules of language.
So the earlier grades.
Yes, because they don't have as much to get caught up on. Because once I get them even in middle school, they want to know why everything happens this way.
Okay.
They can't just take it like, this is how it's done. Don't worry about it. Don't get hung up on that. Just do this. Because it's going to make you more effective if you just speak. Instead of worrying about, all these nuances and grammar rules and all those things. Where little kids, they don't have that grammar background yet where they know what everything is. So they don't have that word. So it's the best, and for them, it's the best place for it to happen.
So let me rephrase that question. Have we ever thought about starting Spanish in a lower grade?
We just had that discussion, and we're looking at pushing it, starting with this next year's 4th graders, possibly. Yeah, 4th grade up.
Very good.
Because you want them to like it,
Yeah.
and really learn to love it, that they want to learn more.
You also learn about knowing they're learning it.
Right, where it's an adventure or something different, and by the time I see them in middle school, nobody wants to make an error, nobody wants to be wrong, nobody, and even my kids, so we do questions every day. We start our class with some questions that relate to our content. And I call it the kids, and we write it on the board, and then we look at it, and I don't want to go up. I think mine's wrong, and blah, blah, and I'm like, what do we do when it's wrong? We all look at it, and then we talk about what's, happening there. It's not like anybody's in trouble, and nobody's flipped out that you're, changing your verbs incorrectly, or, but.
My goodness. No, that is a problem, because there's the self-consciousness at the older.
Yeah, because lots of kids, know a lot of Spanish and are afraid to speak it because they don't ever want to make a mistake. And we want to catch them before they feel it.
We're very fortunate at Sevastopol that we have a program, basically this lady's doing program and the other aides that are here. Because we've expanded, but we couldn't do it without the right people doing the job in that department. Having a couple aides that are bilingual, huge. Shelley Stenzel's also now a bilingual secretary, which makes them feel much more welcomed and received as equal members of our place here. So we're just very blessed to have this group.
And I'm very thankful that you all hired the right people for the right positions. Because seriously, what you just said is so important to me. When I came here, there was Sarah and we had another Spanish teacher.
She was 5 days.
Yeah, but they, they're busy teaching their thing. It was just me who spoke Spanish, who was available. And I want to have that communication and that partnership with families. And I had so many messages like day and night from families. It was just crazy. I mean, I loved it, but it was crazy. But now I'm sharing the love with a lot of people. I've got Shelley, I've got my associates, I've got Anna, and we all learn different things. Even some of my substitutes that used to be Spanish teachers, we all work together to learn about our kids and what we need to do to help them. And it's so nice to be able to share that love with other people and not be the only person. So, thank you.
It's really great to have that in the office.
Yes, oh my gosh.
Where
Shelley's
it's not, nobody's calling one of us
Right.
to come down and talk to a parent, so
GTS.
Because that happens a
Especially
lot.
with the nurses and
Yes.
stuff too.
Oh,
Spend
yeah.
some time.
Especially during COVID.
Yeah,
It's a nightmare.
yes.
So, anyway, I welcome people coming to see what we do. If you ever have any questions or want to come.
I got the homework.
Let me know.
Well, with my Latin background, if you ever need somebody to talk about Caesar's Gaelic prayers, I'll be happy to come.
Okay.
Thank
Do we have any other questions for these teachers?
Very good presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Sorry, Stephen.
No, I'm turning on.
We have guest, we have guest comments now, and Todd Ayler wishes to speak. Go on agenda item.
Do I come up there or right from here? Yeah, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. 11 years ago, when our son Ben was a senior here at Sevastopol, he had the honor of working one period every day in the office, in the high school office with Mr. Bear and Mrs. Lumbach. And during that time, Ben gained such a respect for Mr. Bear. He respected it and had an admiration for him even before that, but that just enhanced that. And to this day, every time that I run into Adam, and that's whether I'm coming up here to talk to Mr. Hilbert's government class, or Adam and I, as your high school principal, has been involved obviously in a lot of truancy issues with students that have had those problems. To this day, every time, Adam will ask me, how's Ben doing, 11 years later. And I attended your dedication here and didn't have the opportunity to stay, but last fall, Adam graciously gave my mom and I a tour, and I was just so obviously impressed with this new facility, but also so impressed of the pride that he expressed about the new opportunities that were for the students and the faculty here at Sevastopol. And I'm here tonight, in all frankness, to express my dismay and my disappointment that an environment and a situation has developed here at Sevastopol where Mr. Bear had to seek a position elsewhere. I think we are losing a young man of real character, integrity, compassion, and I kind of expected Adam was going to be here. I was going to thank him for the decades of service that he provided to Sevastopol, his role in making this school, his middle school, and the school, and it's ranked in the top 5 or whatever in the entire state. So I guess I'll just have to reach out to him and express that to him personally, but that was my purpose of being here this evening. So thank you all for your time this evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll move to the consent agenda. Does anybody have items they wish to have removed from the consent agenda? If not, that will be approved by consent with some amazing donations. $200 from the Miller Art Center Foundation to the Art Department. Fellner Orchards, $510 for Trees for Tomorrow. William and Susan Zagas for $100 for Trees for Tomorrow. Derek and Alexandra, and I don't even know how to say their last name, $170 for Trees for Tomorrow, but they have children here. Jamie and Eric Busing, $100 for Trees for Tomorrow. Steve Robach and State Farm, $100 for the new playground. And the SNB Farm, a donation of $817.50 for the vertical jump tester. And then there are a bunch of other various DI donations, so thank you to all of those community people and groups. We'll move then to the administrator's reports and begin with Mr. Hills.
Thank you very much. The only thing I'd like to draw attention to in the report is just the use of the Eco Lab. A couple of classes have been going out there regularly. And one of the things that the second graders are doing is that they've got a connection with the Ridges Sanctuary and presentations that are done on a monthly basis out there. We're looking to expand that and try and bring in some other grade levels so that they're going out there on a regular basis as well. So in future reports, you'll hear about that.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Hills on his written report?
They said in one of the meetings, isn't your grade school ranked rather high in the state?
I'm trying to think. I want to say we're 100 and something out of, there's 400 districts, and each district has multiple elementary schools. So.
Mrs. McGrath?
Thank you. I wanted to touch a little bit about something that I have in my report. It's the Kids Get Ahead grant that we Sevastopol applied for. And I have the number almost correct. It's $17,800 that we were awarded for it. And I've made some progress on how we're going to use that money. So we have decided to combine or develop a partnership with CISA 7, and they have a program called Allies in Mental Health. And what they do is, I've been working with them the past couple of days. We've had 4 meetings so far, and what we're going to do is, in a total of 16 days, so essentially we pay CISA that money and for CISA days, so it adds on to the CISA contract, and that's how we're going to use it. But they're going to partner with us with a variety of activities for our staff. The first one that we're going to do is we're going to look at what we currently right now have in place for Sevastopol students in regards to Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 interventions for those students who are struggling emotionally and behaviorally. What do we have in place already? Really analyzing that, using the data to make sure if it's effective or not. That will show us the holes in some of the programming that we have, and we're going to essentially build those holes. Looking at community resources, looking at other types of resources, but more importantly, building the capacity within our staff to address some of the challenges that we saw this year. So I'm excited to tell you about the partnership because we're going to be given leadership and direction. And that's something that the past couple of years has shown us that we can really benefit from. Along with knowing where our supports are and the different supports that we're going to need, there's also going to be opportunity for CISA staff to come in and start coaching some of our teachers and our administrative team as well. In addition to providing professional development about student resilience and perseverance as well. So there's a lot of things that we've been talking about, and as I develop more of a plan, I'm going to tell you about that. I also want to invite you to be a part of that programming or part of that conversation if you want to. So the next time that I do meet with CISA, I'm going to put that date out to everybody. So if there's any questions that you have or ideas that you want to share to help build what Sevastopol needs, we welcome you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Does CISA 7 It kind of makes sense adding to that contract. Do they already have that skill set, or do they go out and bring it in? I mean, is that developed already? I mean, I'm kind of curious. We partner with CISA 7 a lot. I don't know the full depth, or are they just going to go hire someone to help us in that area?
No, it's the staff, CISA staff
Yeah.
itself. So
So
they
they
are,
have the training already?
yes,
So we're adding money to a proven group
yes.
who has done this
Yes.
with other schools, and
That-
so we're not the guinea pig, which
No.
is okay too, but they have,
There
Okay.
are so many school districts that partner, especially, and I held back on the Allies for Mental Health because I wanted to see where it really went. We had
Yeah.
experiences 4 or 5 years ago where we did Allies in autism. Same concept. School groups came together, CISA helped guide, and there was a lot of wonderful resources that came out. So now Allies in Mental Health is the new one. The woman who started Allies in Autism is actually the woman who's starting Allies in Mental Health too. So it's a lot of the framework and structure that's there, but then there's different people that come in with those expertise in those areas as well. As far as behavior, social emotional learning, behavioral interventions as well. It's a good question though.
Now, there are times when CISA does bring in someone, like there's a professional development this summertime for computer digital learning. They'll bring an expert in for that and open up. So they do it both ways, but this one is in-house with their
and we've worked with them a long time. I just like to make sure.
We've talked extensively at our CISA board meetings about this, and Marcy, who is the lead person there, has an extremely broad background in this area, and she brings the nexus of mental health and youth apprentice, career planning, that whole area, brings it all together for a comprehensive approach.
What I like about it is that we can tailor it to what specifically Sevastopol needs. We can customize our approach.
Did you have anything else?
You probably kind of
Did any,
You two, for the two of you, you probably can't answer this. You don't have any data, but if this is where the class of 2022 is, okay, compare that to the class of 2018, the last year before COVID. Because in the media, all these discussions that the students graduating now are like 6 months behind to 10 months behind in their educational experience of where the last normal class was before the class before COVID. Not to mention all the mental health issues which have been created in the last 30 years. So from your observations, just as a guesstimate, so if the class of 2018 is at 10 on a scale of 10, where would you put the class of 2022?
It's such a
And that
hard-
may be a loaded question.
It is, because it's so individualized.
There's two things. Is first off, the class of 2018, their makeup of those individuals, when I think of them, I think of this year's seniors, they're different. They're not equal to start with. So you're saying,
what are you reading here?
yeah, they may be a little behind. I do know that for college entrances and then WTC, they were prepared enough to get accepted into those places.
That's, I think what I would say is,
Yeah.
if you looked at the ACT and SAT averages across the country, that would be a good data set. But I know colleges aren't looking at that right now. I mean, if it's beneficial to look at it, if not, they won't.
Our
So-
junior class this year had some of the best ACT scores we've ever had. So if they were hurt, they could have been hurt, but they still scored really well.
But I
Just
will,
bear report on that
I just
last
wanna
one, so it's
say that
hard.
there's a difference in
Yeah.
talking about the upper high school is not the area that I deal with on a regular basis, but just talking across the board, I think it's the emotional piece. I think, in my opinion, I think things have settled down as we've gotten closer to the end of the year. But for the first 2 quarters, for sure, and even maybe the first 3 quarters, we saw a lot of emotional needs that didn't exist before the kids left in 2018. It's just been a lot. It's kind of surprising because you're like, where did that come from? Other than the fact that they just didn't have the same experience.
Yeah, they had been on an AB schedule and they were all here. And how many times we switched masking or had kids go home or required them to wear a mask and not their classmate because of proximity. They went through a lot of ups and downs and lefts and rights.
I won't disagree with that, but I will tell you that there are individual students who struggle mightily. And and they still work really hard to be as successful as they are, but they've had additional challenges. You know, so it's a hard question because I think that all of our kids do the best that they can, for sure. They're prepared to the best of their ability, but there's definitely individual challenges that our students have. And it's wonderful to see them persevere, but the challenge to
Well, I
get
think
there is...
I think kids growing up always had some challenges forever. So you're just saying maybe some more, so.
Or different.
It's different.
They're different. And some kids, they don't do it.
Anyway.
No, yeah, you got 24 hours a day, you know, so you get, it's hard.
Did anyone have questions about Mr. Bear's report that they wanted to pose that someone might be able to answer or not? If not, did anyone have questions about the gifted and talented or AD's report? No, then we'll move to the superintendent.
Two things I want to report on is earlier this week, Brian Stevens from North County Medical Center came on over to discuss if in the future, as an employee group, they can join our co-op for insurance in the future. I'm fine with that. I think it's great. The more numbers you have, the better base you can spread the risk of healthcare. He was going to then go speak with the Southern Door superintendent, and when I think he's going to wait for the New Gibraltar superintendent to get it. But that could happen in a year or two. And if you remember, M3 was here with this last one. She said that's a possibility for other groups to join us, and so that's a possibility. I was glad that he reached out to us to say, hey, is that at least an option? So you at least got to look at your options out there. And then tonight was my first meeting with the Door County Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, where we had a facilitator for NWTC, who's facilitated the group. We're there from 4 to 6. That's Amanda Crew, and there must have been 14 of us, and so now we're coming up with a timeline, and the end goal is to come up with actionable steps, and who would take responsibility for the steps to put them in motion to make Door County a better place to live.
Any questions for Mr. McKee?
So, well, as you find more, you'll let us know what that means. I mean, so what, I mean, so they will, this group will come up with plans that businesses will do, and then schools will do, and then schools will have to fund those. That's sometimes, that's more, that'll develop.
This originally was put together by a resolution by the county, and so they asked me to serve on the committee, and I don't know how many they asked, but there's 14 or 12, but 12 or 14 was there tonight, and it's different groups, minority groups. Door County Economic Development was there. There's a whole bunch of us, and so we're working on what should the county do to address the inequities in the county. And then the goal is to come up with actionable items, and we did have a little discussion on, okay, well, who runs with that? I suggested that since we're all members of the county should, and then we talked about, well, maybe someone else is better at a part of it. If we have 4 or 5 initiatives, maybe the schools are the place for it. I said, well, that's difficult because as a school,
Budget.
well, I know where the budget as much as who couldn't get the 4 schools in the county to agree upon the same calendar. How would you get them all on the same page on a mission like that? But we'll get there. It's going to take us. We're going to work on this for NWTC. It's going to be a year-long process. So this was the first time we had the facilitator there to get our ears.
So chartered by the county.
By the county,
County board.
right?
Right. Did make this happen or something.
Yeah.
Thanks.
My only question to you is, the Civil Rights Act of 1964-65, the federal government decided they would let the schools be the main carrier of integration throughout the United States, and it blew up the public school system. I mean, you don't use the schools. You do not use the schools to achieve social agendas. Schools are for education. The social workers and the sociologists are there for the social agendas. I'm just putting a comment. I mean, history does repeat itself, and if you look back and really are honest with what happened in public schools in the mid to late 60s, I wasn't part of it, but it was because they were given the burden of integrating this country.
because I think that's a question of who's in charge, right? Because I can see it'd be very easy for this group of people, I don't know who's all there, just to go, schools, there you go, my problem solved. And I just want to make sure that we have our opportunity as a school board and
Well,
community to
you
do
would
it.
have, any initiative would come back to you guys if it was
Of
charged.
course.
Yeah, and this group could not bind the district to do something, because you guys decide
I'm
first.
just
That's why I told them, I said,
just
well,
give me a little historical context.
Sure.
You can always say, we've been there and done that.
Because a lot of people have been pointing to schools to solve problems already. We hear about this for years now.
And schools have enough
Whenever
problems.
there's a problem, the school should solve it, that's right.
Thank you.
Couple things, Jeff, welcome to the school board. As I said last time, Cindy did not want recognition, but a donation has been made or will be made to the Sunshine Club in her honor. A couple of things that, it's been reported to me that it's hard to hear the video. And our sound system, we used to use the microphones, but that kind of made it worse. So I don't want to insult anyone, but when you speak, you have to speak up and speak loud. My husband tells me all the time, I speak too loud. But we have to speak up so that the microphone can hear. And I say this every year, and I'm going to say it again. When we make motions, you have to say the motion. I'm not going to accept so moved anymore. The proper way is for you to make the motion.
There are, on the voice thing, for people hearing us, there are conference rooms that we all go to that are wired very well for sound. Does his board want to invest in that, or ask him to look? Because they have, like conference rooms have we all have a microphone with a little mute button on it. And after a little bit of training, then you can, there are systems that provide good audio all over the place. The question is, do we want to?
I think that's what they tried with the microphone.
Well, that was a little speaker thing.
That worked fine, it's just it was not consistently used. We would have loud people turn it on, we'd have quiet people not use them. So it would make it harder to balance the audio effects post.
So if everybody turned it on, would it work well?
Right, if we messed with the volume there, for sure.
Well, I just don't know, because maybe it's audio mixing gear, I'm just saying, somehow people figure it out.
Yeah, the acoustics are not good.
So I was just saying, there's,
Maybe we should try the microphones again and make sure everybody turns them on and listen to a meeting or two first and see if that solves any problem.
well, and the only thing is, that's just a speaker that is picking up. Let's get an audio thing that's directly wired in, like a line in, because he's just picking up more noises. That's how audio works. That's my point, is not a quick answer. If we're serious about it, let's start investing in, find an audio group who knows what they're doing. Right, and account for acoustics and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, if not, I'm good, because I'm a loud dude, people probably hear me. But I'm just saying, if it's really something serious, well, let's spend some money, a small amount, or look into it. That's, I deal with communications with people all the time, all over the country, and we're figuring it out. And then there are times I do exactly what you said. No one can hear you speak up. This afternoon I said I heard Charlie Brown's grandma come again, or teacher, So it's a constant struggle. I'm just saying we can keep doing what we did, because what you did before was good, it's just.
Yeah, we definitely need something to improve the process, yeah.
do you want to go back to the microphones until we can do some research on a permanent answer?
Yeah, we can do that.
All right.
And we'll just make sure that everybody
We got our top guy on.
turns them on.
Well, I know, what you did before was great, it's just,
You push on, push off.
Yeah, we didn't push you in.
But I was instructed not to turn mine.
Dave's the only one that doesn't get
We're saving the budget, put our budget money in Dave's spot.
If he needs to.
I'm going to leave with you each tonight a copy of the school board self-evaluation. We're not going to discuss it tonight. We will put it on a closed session agenda for next time, and we're going to get through at least 3 of those modules and really evaluate ourselves. So I'll hand this to you before you leave tonight, so you have it to review as you so wish. And then you have these red binders. I'm thinking, if you want to bring them back, I'll update them, and rather than sending them home, because I don't think people like lugging them back and forth, we'll get the information in them, and then keep them here and hand them out at the meetings. There might be a cabinet we can stick them in or something. So bring yours back and I'll get them all updated. Yeah, just bring, give it to me. And my goodness, there's a lot to do at school, to be here every day for some concert or game or ceremony.
It's May.
It's great.
Yeah, it's May.
We'll move then to the Property Building and Security Committee.
Well, the phase 2 of the athletic program improvement is going to be underway very soon. What's the starting, official starting, May 22nd?
It's Monday. Monday, yeah, which is the 23rd. But Myron is starting to prep the area with marking where electrical lines and different lines are, and they're going to get their safety fence out and their trailer out there. But yeah, it's next week. You'll see Hutchinson start digging the foundation for the.
So we saw the final plans and everything to go on that. The field, the football field needs some work and.
Point of beginnings, and Hutchinson were here on Saturday. They have a checklist of items. I told Myron, Point of Beginnings and Hutchinson, that the district would not be paying Hutchinson and Point of Beginnings any further payments. Right now, Myron has held $60,000 from Hutchinson's payments, and so the field's got to get rectified and the area outside the fence as well. So POB says the shooting of the survey for the crowning of the field is correct. Everything's 1 inch lower than they expected. They believe that's due to March and April thaw, but it's okay if everything went down 1 inch, my understanding is. But they're going to be out there. The waviness, they've got to work on that getting out. They think they'll bring in 5 to 10% more fill.
Is it going to be filtered good topsoil and not just Storm County?
It's supposed to be topsoil. It's supposed to be topsoil, and Myron's going to oversee POB and Hutchinson on that. So it'll be nice to have Myron back on site every day with the phase 2 part of the project, because then they can address the phase 1 out there at the same time.
So what else? Oh, we did meet with, this is quite a while back, I guess, the fire department, the issue of the greenhouse, the paneling, and it's an ongoing issue. And in my experience and how many years of working greenhouses, I never heard of the requirements of an opaque panel in the ceiling of a greenhouse. So it's a building code situation, and yeah, we're trying to deal with it. It's a strange situation.
You have a drawing on at your spot, and what the shaded in areas are the areas that say you have to change out the current material with either a metal or a glass.
Yeah. So I mean, we would prefer obviously to put glass in. It has to do with the quality, the fire resistance or susceptibility to melting of the acrylic panels, and I have not yet gotten the reasoning behind it, because acrylic panels do not catch on fire; they melt and evaporate. That's the material. So yeah, I guess we just.
Did they show you anything in code?
No, it's been between Bray and the state right now. I haven't seen the actual code right and say, there you go, that's it. And I think it's, and I believe it's interpretation of the code. And we've been back and forth on this.
So it's a strange. Signs are up outside.
They look nice.
Yeah, for the gym entrance. And I think that's a big plus. Grabbing people around. Yeah.
We're looking at, you go down Pioneer Way out to Rip Road, Not directly across from the T intersection, but a little bit to the west, there's a post there. And we're looking at getting a light installed there right now. And then we're gonna look at additional lighting down Pioneer Way. But the first answer would be get a light on there. Dan Petrina's contacted WPS about getting a light there. And then Dave's looking at signage to get signs.
Well, there's a process to get signs out on the highway. We wanted signs on the highway.
Yeah, at the end of the road, there should be.
Right, and kind of, we just have to meet and finalize the wording and figure out what the signs are, because I'd kind of like to figure out the brown ones. But right now, they're saying those white informational signs might be the right target. I know some might question that, so. But we're in the process of that, and the building and grounds group will come up with the definition of the signs. I mean, obviously, like, K-12, front office, it'll all be consistent signage, but it'll be out on the road so people are coming in.
Yeah, because there are people who don't know how to get in here.
And then the only thing I'll add is we found it's pretty easy to go through the process. The DOT guy has approved sign makers, and there's like a $250 fee for most likely the local county highway department to install the signs after we get through that process.
Plus, I think we also talked about a more descriptive, however you want to put it, sign at the intersection of Rip Road and
More branding type sign.
in that triangular area that the town of Sevastopol owns. And there's power, should be power.
Yes,
in there.
confirmed.
Yeah. So,
That's great.
Well, and to add to that, if I may, we talked to the town, so, and this is, just, I think this is interesting, they're open to the idea, obviously we'd have to bring options to them, and of course we'd have to bring options to the school board too. But the one thing he said, which I thought was interesting at the meeting, was their Sevastopol Town Park sign is in need of replacement. So if we could come up with a creative way for a new sign that would somehow introduce you to the school district of Sevastopol and include this, it's a town park, they might even go in and share some of that sign cost, depending on what we, and they did confirm that there's a power outage over there. So they're kind of, and I think obviously it made more sense since it was, if we could maybe do a joint effort, and that's what we've been trying to do more of. It would be something to think about, but we probably need, I don't know, get some creative people to do some nice sign creation, and multiple options or whatever you guys want or whatever people want. But as long as we can incorporate, hey, this is the town park and, Sevastopol School District area, I don't know what that would look like.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell you this because I'm thinking about it. I know Mr. Petrino is having trouble with the flashing light on the north end of the highway that said, 15 miles per hour. What wasn't working tonight at 5:30 or 10 at 5 o'clock, it was flashing. So the clock probably needs some adjustment in the thing.
They were just testing.
That could be. I don't know. Anything else on buildings and grounds? The policy committee met April 29th, and we have policies tonight? Yeah, we do have policies tonight.
Yeah, Sue, Jerry, you want to talk about that at all?
And we are meeting again on the 27th.
When are we meeting again, myself? It was an interesting meeting. It was kind of a technological disaster, but because they couldn't get theirs to work and we couldn't get our computer to work.
Neola couldn't pull, she was remote, she couldn't pull up her screen. So she asked us to. We did, and we lost connection there.
At this point in time, they should be sending us somebody on site.
She has a situation where she is a caretaker.
Then they should send us somebody else, because those virtual meetings, as we know, they don't work worth a hoot, and we pay them a good sum of money.
Well, this was the first time we had a technical problem.
Accurately so, though, they should be, for the amount of money you're paying, they should come here, I would think.
They must have other people.
Do you want me to request they come on site? The only situation there is Jean Bourne is our rep. She would have to hand it off to someone else that's not as clean then. I shouldn't speak for her. She may say, okay, I'll come out. She may say, no, it's going to have to be a different rep, and then we kind of lose some continuity, because we just had Dr. Bob Worley retire, and we got Jean Bourne on board last year about this time.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
So was the technical difficulty on their end or our end?
Well, she was supposed to pull up her screen, and she couldn't do it. She told us, you can pull up on your end, you won't lose us. We pulled it up, and we did lose them.
But we were able to accomplish what we needed.
That just took a half hour of,
Right.
Is this restriction that prevents her from traveling permanent, or is it a temporary thing?
Well,
she's a retired superintendent, she's
Primary
taking caregiver for elderly relatives.
Well, my only concern is we pay a company for a service. We don't pay her, right?
Right.
So as long as you guys get the service done, but if the service isn't getting done, then it sounds like this discussion should continue, but it sounds like there's mixed feelings if it's getting done.
Maybe for next time they can
We
make
can
sure
see how it goes
they're.
next time.
I can request that she comes on site, I can't guarantee, I'll try and find out the status of when she thinks she can. I'd rather stick with Jean than change, but.
Then have them test their equipment
Well, I
ahead
think
of time.
that's, he has an input, but you all have an input, so we
Okay.
need to stay with that person, but.
I'll reach out to her, at least request on site. I don't think she, I have no reason to think she changed her system, but we'll work on it.
Ask her what restrictions might be helpful for her to be on site. Would it be everyone wearing a mask and the proper distancing that she would feel comfortable with?
Certain she doesn't stay in her house all the time.
We can at least ask them, let's go.
Okay, I will reach out to Jean Bourne.
The communications committee met, and the next issue of the Pioneer Times will come like the Friday before graduation, thereabouts. There was artwork, if you recall, hanging in the old multi-purpose room. Some of it was donated, some of it was student artwork. And the committee came up with a process for display and disbursement. I guess is it every year, Mr. Lukey, that there's a senior whose artwork is selected?
Right.
Is the,
There's a piece that's picked by the senior class, typically the senior class, the best artwork, and we have it framed and keep it here. And the goal would be to probably display that one in this room for a year, and then keep the four most current years in the academic hallway, first floor of the high school, and the current trophy case kind of by the T intersection. And then when we get it the next year, it replaces the one here, that one goes down there, and then the one that was the oldest piece would come out and go to the student. That's the rotation, right?
and Mr. Kidd will be distributing those other pieces that were in the multi-purpose room back to the students. I don't think we talked about anything else, but
Talk about the 100th graduation ball.
no, we didn't. I just, not in communication committee, but it's a piece of communication I will mention, for Teacher Appreciation Week, Staff Appreciation Week, the town did allow us to put up something on that billboard by Culver's that said, Education Week, thanks Sevastopol staff. I don't know if anybody saw it, I never caught it when I went by.
I saw it, I don't remember what it said, but yeah, I've never seen it.
So thank you to them for that. Budget.
Budget, we transferred $415,306 out of our general fund, Fund 10, over to ADM. That's for the September capital debt for this project, because we have 2 payments, and so we collect the money this year, pay it in September, because our financial year ends June 30th. So that we collect this year, we have it for that payment at that time. We received $170,087 in property tax for lottery tax credit, which goes into the property tax line of the revenue. To date, we collected $6.1 million, we still have 1.9 to go. which will come in July and August payments for the municipalities. And we had $168,484 in spec ed flow-through claims. We had estimated that that amount would be 130, so it's 38,000 greater than the profit we're going to receive. And that claim process should be done at this point for the year.
Questions on the budget matters?
So our budget going to be out of whack now with the price of gas?
No, the line items for transportation will be a little bit, but it's not too bad because we always make sure we have plenty in there when we decide how much expense to have. And the gas prices weren't high until the last couple months here, so yeah, it's going up. We're going to put more in that line item for next year.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. I'm back.
I know next year will be tough.
Now, I mean, next year now, you also have to remember, we ordered a bus in December for this year, and we're not going to receive it until July or August. That's $105,000. So our revenue will look like, when we get with that as an expense we won't have in there. I also did have Dan, I don't remember what week it was, I think it was last week of April, or a second bus for the 22-23 school year, and they're telling us it'll be January. Typically, so that budget hasn't been approved yet, but I told them to order the bus because it's 10 months away. And the bus we do get in July or August when it gets here won't have all the switches in it. So you can, well, that's okay. You can use it for transporting kids for field trips, ball games, extracurriculars, but you can't do it for a route because you can't have all the lights for the legal stop. So they will send, when they get them, then they'll bring those out in August. They claim we'll have it by the beginning of the school year, but who would have thought ordering buses would be so difficult? And the second bus we ordered, we're purchasing an international bus. We've always had Bluebirds. Bluebird won't take any more orders because they're 2 years out. So on their orders, so they won't even take an order size. So we'll order an international one now, which was end of April. We'll get it in January, but you don't believe you're getting it until it pulls in the yard. So, yeah. And switches is the main holding piece on that.
We have drivers for the buses, everybody. I mean, it seems like that's.
Well, what they'll do is we'll kick one of our buses
We
on.
rotate every other year, yeah.
We got the same number, we have the same number of routes. We have one bus driver that's probably gonna retire and maybe a second one. And our bus driving crew is older in age. And they've done a great job and they stuck with us through COVID. We didn't lose, they're 65, 70, 75 years old.
I don't know what the year, I don't know if we're ever thinking about, I know can we kick around, I know other districts outsource or use the buses or neighbors and I'm not saying we should or shouldn't, but I mean, in the future, I don't know how do they keep up with
They're short drivers too.
I mean, is that just everybody just doesn't have?
It's every industry right now is short workers, and bus drivers is a difficult job because of the hours you work. You only work a couple hours in the morning and a couple afternoon, and so what do you do at the middle of the day? It's not a
Farming field.
There's less farmers today than there was 20 years ago, right?
But I mean,
right,
historically, that was.
Right.
Yeah.
You would see the farmer would have the bus right in their yard, and they'd get up, milk the cows, go drive the route, come home, do some chores, run the route, go home, milk the cows again. There's less dairy farmers than there ever was, right?
I just didn't know if it was something we should be thinking about. As the trend, if that would even be a solution.
We don't know how to get more drivers, but yeah, we would take any we could. We just had that discussion in ad team today when we were talking about personnel. Workers are coming hard to find by in every industry. You guys know that from where you're at.
Right, it is.
And bus drivers.
It's great that we have some coaches that can drive buses. So,
we're going to rely on that more and more. We're just fortunate that our drivers we had stuck with us through COVID. And remember, they had to be masked longer than in the classroom this year.
Yeah.
And they stuck with it. No, our drivers,
No,
This is aside from bus drivers, but probably about a half a dozen, maybe 8 years ago, we did have a study of whether it would be more beneficial to us to go with a company, and there weren't any benefits, and it would have cost us more money. Maybe that's another study we need to have, but at that time, it didn't make any sense financially.
if we got out of having our own buses, we'd probably sell our buses to go busing, right? And then if you wanted to get back into it, and a bus is $100,000, and we got 13 of them, yeah, I mean, I guess we can go back to busing and buy used. I mean, you're looking at
Once
$1
you go, you never go.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I wasn't saying that.
I know, so.
I know that the trend, is.
Absolutely. No, when a district goes,
In our yearbook of the bus drivers, and, a lot of them are retired and
Yeah.
at an age where.
It's good to ask, and I think we had a study before, and we could be looked at again as time goes on,
if it's been 8 years, it might be a long time to bring her back up and at least explore it.
But it would have to be an all or nothing kind of decision, so.
But it would have to be a benefit too. I mean, if they can't provide us drivers either, then.
The first thing they would do is hire all our drivers, right?
If the guys want to.
And buy
our
buses.
drivers want to.
Right. So I don't think we're hurting by buying a bus like we are
We have
here.
to. No, we gotta.
Because at the end, we could, or something.
Carry on doing what.
Buying our buses, I think, was the right rotation, right, that's how we did.
It's like any contract service. It relieves you of some headaches. In the long run, it's not cost you more. Because they're making it off of you. So if you could do it for X, they gotta do it for X plus more.
No, I get it.
I just think you need to look at their contract, your support service. Isn't there a line that says any other responsibility that's delegated?
Some of us couldn't pass the test to drive the bus.
Oh.
I don't want that. I'll fail that test every time you give it to the jury. Because I'm not driving
It's
the
like to drive
bus.
buses in the morning.
I know Carl Schultz did, but
It's like you have to drive the bus in the morning. Meet your kids right at the church.
Well, maybe you should ask Carl Hilton too, so he carries on the tradition of his family.
Well, one thing, if we get into that ballgame, what does some creative discussions be? Let's increase our maintenance staff, requiring them to be bus drivers, so then we would get some more maintenance, because we need more maintenance and cleaning crew, but also have them do bus driving. So we're gonna have to do some creative job description matching to say, how do we satisfy our busing need, and we have a maintenance need, and the hours are screwy, so maybe we craft up somebody, and somebody might be interested to do some cleaning and some fixing and then some bus driving, That might be, maybe we looked at that before, but that's what I would think, because I know there would be benefit. I think if I talked to the cleaning crew, they'd probably be benefit from more, but we can't justify more and more maintenance, that we want. We have to justify step by step, so.
just think of our maintenance crew that are veteran staff as well.
Well, then we start bringing in some younger people to back them up, so.
If we can find them.
Well, but I'm saying, that's why if you package up a job description, that you can maybe be more competitive, and say, get a CDL or get a bus driver's license, whatever that is.
You got the CDL for passengers. It's more difficult than a regular CDL. Yeah.
So, I don't know where that is.
I would love to have spare bus drivers and buses, and yeah.
We'll move to facilities, building, field project.
We kind of covered it.
Yeah.
We already covered that.
Full speed ahead.
Yep.
I got a building question.
Go ahead.
Now that we've been in this cool place for a while, how is everything working? And what I mean by that is, do we need any more training for the staff, the HVAC system doing what it's supposed to do? Because we got it, and all the little bells and whistles. Do we have all the adequate training and stuff like that? Would it be beneficial to have a discussion on that and bring more in, or everyone's pretty happy with what they're doing now that we've had it for a while? That's just a general question.
Well, you talk about HVAC. We are changing the air handler in the 1965 gym this summer. Just got the gate on the southeast corner by the greenhouse where the arm works. If you have a swipe card, when you come driving up, you just swipe your card, it goes up. If you're a driver making a delivery, you hit the button, it contacts the secretaries of the office, they can see who it is, what their business is, talk to them, then open up the gates so they get back. Once you're behind the school, when you leave, when your vehicle hits a certain point, an eye automatically lifts up. It's working as I don't know what Dan needs for training. I don't know.
It's just a follow.
I don't, are you just talking like custodial staff? You're talking about
Anybody, general, it's a
anybody?
general thing, just like my customers. After we leave, we check
I
that.
don't know.
No, I think after the initial moving in and kind of just figuring out where everything is and how to use the space and those things.
We did the April tornado drill and we had to, figure out paths people were going to take to get to their location and who's fitting where and stuff.
Still some small things like we talked today about the lights flashing down at the beginning of the area.
Right.
When announcements go on, just so you can figure out.
Yeah,
Or
okay.
notice that there's something.
There's always going to be minor things.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Yeah, and then of course, the big projects that they go with the building is stairs from the gym going outside that has to have a permanent railing put in, and it's going to have a sidewalk connecting the steps to the sidewalk that's out there, and the drain, come out where the music teacher's office is. I don't know what door number that is. I don't know my door numbers yet. Yeah, well, the drain right now comes down and goes around the side of the building. They're gonna lift up 2 of those cakes, bust out 2 of those cakes on the sidewalk, put it underneath, and then so it's on ice. We found out when winter hit that that was a slick ice thing, yeah. So they put it, what do you call it, tube on it for the winter time to get us through the winter, but they have to do it right, so yeah, they're coming back. Yeah.
The only other thing, I've heard some rumblings, and it might just be that, it might be from my kid, is sometimes they're, with all the doors locked, they're struggling at getting the right door to get in the building, and I just don't know if that's a bigger issue anywhere else. Not a big, sometimes just they don't know which doors, they're out over at practice, and then they're coming in at a different time with the coach, they can't get in the door. I don't know if that was just because he wasn't listening to what he was told, or, so it might not be an issue, by the way, is what I'm saying.
The doors are locked to keep people out.
Right.
If they go out for an outdoor practice, they should be coming in with a group, and someone should have the swipe key to let them in. We just don't, we don't put a rock or a t-shirt or something in the door, but I bet it happens 3 times a week. I know every time I see one, I kick it out. You say, hey, don't do that. You can't find out who did it, right? Because it's always, oh, yeah, it wasn't me. Yeah, okay. It's the last athlete out or someone, yeah.
You'll find out who did it when they can't get it.
Right.
I saw Peg driving like a floor polisher. Did the lithium batteries come for all of our equipment? Some of our equipment?
Whatever they're using right now, I don't know. Perhaps I should know this. Hilliard's coming back on May 31st at 10 o'clock to do more training and such, and I think he's bringing some more supplies. Like that rider she has, if I had to redo the building, the carpeting in the hallway by first grade by the small group instruction, I'd make that rubberized red floor so it has the aesthetic look you want, but now they bring that carpet down, they gotta stop and go back to its carpeting, and then they gotta go on the other side and do it over there for bead-foot sections. So when I walk past that, that really irritates me when I see that. Shoot, that's one thing. Yeah, it look good in paper and stuff, but in practicality, it's not. It's a irritant every day when they have hours, but yeah.
That's an input that's an input we should give to Byron and their
I know where
designer.
Well, no, it's Bray, because
Or
Myron builds according to what the
Yeah,
plans
okay,
they
Bray.
get. No, I've told Bray about it, because, yeah.
Kyle, just pick up what Dave said, maybe it'd be Dave's needs, maybe like in the September meeting when the building now is like a year old, why don't you just put on your little list of things and come to us with a building report for the 1-year anniversary, pros and cons and all that stuff. That gives you time when you could have organized thoughts on it and And
We'll have a building and grounds meeting in August and help on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the appropriate time, a year later, come back to the board and say, I'm building.
Legislative reports.
Yes, just a couple of things to add quickly. I did attend the WASB Spring Governance Conference, which was held Tuesday night at the CISA office in Green Bay. Patty Bickman was one of the presenters. She's a retired superintendent from Southern Door. And Carol Stinsky, who is one of the WASB consultants. And I do have some good materials which I will share with the board next month. I didn't have time to get them duplicated at this point. And next month, in June, I will be attending the Convention Planning Committee for WASB. I chair that committee this year for the January convention. And we will be meeting with representatives from WASB as well as the business officials group and the district administrators group, because that is a joint conference. And we will also have in June our WASB budget planning meeting for the upcoming year. And we will have an executive team meeting. So lots going on with WASB in June.
Legislatively, I met with the other superintendents of the county with Representative Kitchens on the 30th. I did ask him about the statewide reading program and why it's just going to be for schools who have failing reading scores. And he said sometimes you have to vote with the group on some items. We understood that point. He is not sure if, right now, the head of the educational committee is not running for re-election, and he's the vice. He's not sure if he wants to be appointed or will be appointed as the chair, and that's politics as is, because he's pro-education, which isn't always popular with his party. So
Not a lot going on legislatively because of busy running for re-election.
And then the superintendents asked if I would reach out to Senator Jock to set up a meeting, and I emailed them and haven't heard back. So I don't know why they didn't put me in charge. But yeah, it was my hand at the wrong time or something. I said something.
He's an easy target. Board goals, I think when we look at this survey, I know we've set goals for the school, but I think there are some goals that we can set for ourselves in our governance as we look at this survey. And that evaluation I'll ask to have on the agenda next meeting in closed session. School operations, COVID 21-22.
We're continuing on for now. I had the opportunity to extend Summit Labs coming here next year. Not knowing the future of COVID, I elected to have that. That's through a grant. We don't have to pay anything for the service, so Summit Labs will still be on site next year for testing as well. I don't know what the experience coming and what it's going to be like.
Fund 73.
Carl and I met with Baird, and Carl is today and tomorrow at a conference where they're going to focus on a session on Fund 73. So I got that on here as a placeholder so we remember that we're working on it, because he's going to bring back stuff from where he is today and tomorrow.
Move to new business then, and the appointment of the Wisconsin Association of School Boards Convention delegate and alternate. And the delegate is the person that looks at all of those proposals by other schools and goes to the meeting. Sue, you've traditionally done that. Sue would like to do that again. Is there a motion?
I remain, I'd be happy to. I think Sue's done an excellent job keeping us updated and all that stuff, which probably many of us would not like to do.
Second.
Was that?
Chris, did you get that whole motion?
Chris, did you get that motion?
I think he now gets it.
Questions?
That was quick.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Would someone like to serve as the alternate?
I nominate you.
You do need to attend the convention.
The alternate does?
Well, only if the,
Only if
to
the-
attend only if the delegate can't do
Oh.
it. And I guess at this point, we can just have, nominate somebody and to do it, and maybe that has to change next January when the time comes around. So there is a motion, there is a motion for Jerry Warwick. Is there a second?
Second.
Questions?
That was awesome.
Are there any other nominations?
Only if Sue keeps great health.
That's all we're gonna.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry.
Um, We have the 2022-2023 student handbooks that we received. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. I motion to approve the handbook.
To the changes? So we're approving?
We're approving the handbook, we'll look for a second, and then we'll have discussion and questions. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so, question,
Well, I mean, there's a couple things I highlighted in it that I thought were wrong.
okay, then now's the time.
Except they don't have any pages on the handbooks. What are the- Page 3 of the handbook, in the introduction. The first paragraph under introduction talks about that this handbook summarizes many of the official policies and administrative guidelines of the Sevastopol School Board of Education and the Sevastopol School District. In using this handbook, you should know that the district policies in their entirety supersede all handbook statements if questions occur. I guess my question is to the wording of that. Do we need to say something along the lines of district policy shall supersede any discrepancy in the handbook? I guess questions occur, I just think
So is that statement, do I interpret that right? The student is expected to know all the policies of the district in their entirety? That's a little bit much.
What page are you on, Jeff?
Page 3.
First
32?
paragraph.
This would be the page that says, welcome to Sevastopol Middle and High School,
Oh, okay.
under introduction. This student handbook was, that's the sentence, your
Was
question.
developed to answer many of
The
the
last
comments.
question, the last
And
sentence.
using this handbook, he's asking about. You should know.
So is your question about the sentence, in using this handbook, you should know that district policies in their entirety supersede all handbook statements of questions to occur? That's the sentence you're questioning?
Yes.
I would like a better clarification on.
Well, that's why we go through and we review policies.
So if we have a policy, the policy,
If there's a discrepancy between the two,
You go
policy supersedes the handbook.
Yeah.
right, and, okay, so this comes out, the kids get it in September, and then we change a policy in December. The policy is what we go by, not what's written down in the handbook. We can't have a parent says, well, it says it in the handbook, we say, okay, well, sorry about that, that was printed over summer, handed out to the kids in September. Now it's December, the board has changed the.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, I just don't like the wording. Questions occur, I guess is my.
So do you have a, do you
Oh, if
have a
questions.
suggestion that of wording that would?
Here, we don't need if questions occur. Do you agree with that, Jeff? If
Yeah,
you-
I guess, I mean, my thing would be, it says, any discrepancies between the district policies shall supersede any discrepancy in the handbook. Or if there's
Period?
any-
Period. No, if questions occur, you
Yeah.
cut right out.
Sure, yeah.
That clarifies it, that one for you?
I do like us as handbook statements compared to policies earlier.
This was a general discussion item, so I don't have a page reference. Oh, Jeff, do you have more? I can wait. Keep going.
Yeah, I got some more somewhere.
All right.
Okay,
Just gotta find it. It's a lot of pages.
While Jeff's looking
Sure.
at it, go ahead, Dave.
And I will, so there's been some discussion, with, I guess I support the athletic committee and stuff with all this stuff. Is there a need, I'm not making it, I'm asking, is there a need for clarification between the code, the WIA code and our handbook? And if there's any discrepancies in there, would there be some clarification to make it easier? Because I know there's been some discussions going on what level of violation someone should be done. And I've heard, and I'm not tracking all the details, that there might be benefit in clarifying some of that. Would that be something that we want to?
I think for the high school portion, the WIA sets the bar, the conference can set the bar, and we can set it higher, we can't set it under those two bars. The conference, my understanding, set it like 8 or 10 years ago, but now the districts have gone different directions and aren't really following what the conference as a whole decided, probably because of changeover and all the administration. And at the conference level, the 80s meet once a month and the principals meet once a month, and that's it. But I think with their changeover of personnel, they don't hand one out and say, here's the handbook for Packland, follow this as a minimum. So I think for the high school one, our athletic director should sit down with the athletic committee and come up with our
Recommended consideration.
discipline section for athletics, right? Because then later on, we'll have the middle school one that she prepared coming through your committee as well.
And then just for process for me on this one item, we can press ahead and approve this because we can change the handbook down the road
Because
whenever we want.
if when the board makes a motion and approves it, that supersedes anything that's written down, because this is active as the day it was approved by the board here. But you guys amend something or change it, whatever day that is approved at board level, then it's in effect that day.
Okay, I think that's reasonable. If nothing comes of it, then nothing will come of it.
Gentlemen,
So we
can
got,
add
but
that
Jeff's
to your,
got some
Yeah, we're
page
happy.
yet.
to your agenda.
No, I forgot. I can't find my highlighted area. I must not have highlighted it correctly, so.
Okay.
Do you
It's
know what
gone,
it
so I
was
don't know where it
regarding?
was.
Do you know what it
Do you
was
know the top of
regarding?
it?
That was a lot of stuff to read through.
Do you know what it was regarding?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I did that
Well,
Friday.
if you
I did
think
that
about
Friday.
it, if you come up with it, let me know, and we can
Yeah.
always bring it back in June if that's the case.
Yeah, we can bring it back.
Is there anything in here on cell phones?
Pardon me?
Cell phones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What page I did say? I missed it. I see phones,
I
I
don't
don't
know
know
what
anything
it
about.
is, but
There's a lot of Blackberries gets crossed out.
26.
A lot of Blackberries?
Yeah, again, crossed out.
26 maybe, for a cell phone something. Something like first violation, they take it, then they give it back to you at the end of the day. Second, something, and pretty soon you lose it or something like that.
what's your question about the cell phones, Jerry?
What is our policy on cell phones? Can students use cell phones?
Yes, there is a policy, yeah, that it really restricts the kids from using it unless there's a scenario where the teachers authorize it because they're in some curriculum or event that allows them to do that without being disruptive. I think that's in summary for my kids, that's that policy quote, but there's that.
And whether a teacher allows them to use it in their classroom or not.
It's on page 12.
What did you want, what would you like the policy to be, Jerry?
Personally, I think when you walk in the building, you turn your cell phone off, and when you leave the building, you turn your cell phone on. I think cell phones today, with the issue of me, have read that cell phones, with texting back and forth, using cell phones, has a lot to do with bullying, and I don't see any reason why somebody needs to use a cell phone while they're in school.
I think if you read the policy, it's kind of essentially that.
I don't want to leave it up to the individual where Ms. S says you can have cell phones in my class, and Mr. X says you can't have cell phones in my class.
Can I read you the paragraph?
Yeah.
Certainly. It says, students are prohibited from using or displaying in plain sight personal communication devices, PCDs, including but not limited to cell phones during the school day, 7:55 to 3:10, in school buildings and vehicles, and at all school-sponsored activities. Smart watches may be subject to the same guidelines if they are used as communication device. The school day shall include lunch periods and passing periods. Using shall include but not be limited to having the PCD on, making calls, receiving calls, or taking pictures, cell phones with picture and or video capacity, for accessing any other functionality of the device such as internet, music, text messaging, email, etc.
Basically, they're banned.
Students may carry PCD in backpack, purse, or his or her pocket. Such possession of the PCD may not in any way disrupt the educational process of the school district, endanger the health or safety of students or anyone else, invade the rights of others, involve any illegal or prohibited conduct of any kind. Under no circumstances may PCDs be used in any locker rooms or laboratories. The district assumes no responsibility for loss, theft, damage, vandalism of PCDs as of their school property. Violations of this policy result, but not limited to the following discipline action. First violation, the device will be confiscated and returned to the student at the conclusion of the school day. Second violation, the device will be confiscated and returned only to a parent or guardian. Third violation, the device will be confiscated and returned to the student after his parent conference has been held with the student.
Seems pretty comprehensive.
Well, yeah, but it's enforced.
It's not always enforced, it's hard to enforce. You can ask a kid for something and the only way they got it is on their phone, you know?
I know like I text my kids during the day, and I typically don't hear back till the end of the day. So I think most of their classrooms aren't really allowing it. It's actually an issue in my family, because I'm at the end, as soon as the school bell rings, I go, check your phone. Because if I'm communicating for the family that Jeff's gonna pick you up after practice, or this is gonna happen, or we did this. So I mean, in my experience is it's limited. I'm not saying it's 100%.
At 3:15, you ought to see them come out, and their heads go down, and they're walking down the hallway with 8 of their friends, but no one's talking to each other, they're checking what they got. And I'm sure there's kids that use it, I know they do, but it's, yeah.
So I guess with that paragraph, my problem would be with first sentence, saying that students are prohibited from using or displaying in plain sight. Well, that tells me I can do it if it's not in plain sight.
I think part of that was
So if it's sitting down under here and I'm looking at my phone underneath the desk, that's not in plain sight, so I can do it.
Okay, so you want to...
I mean, that's the way I read it. I don't know if kids reading it would read it that way.
No, that's fair. The thing that I thought was reasonable, that if you have it in your backpack or in your pocket, you know, that's where you happen to carry it.
But later on it says you can carry it there. So students are prohibited from using or displaying. Just put, students are prohibited from using personal communication devices, right?
Yeah, I guess give it away.
So I probably sound like a 74-year-old right now. Why would just require them to put them in their lockers when they come in the morning? Take them out of the lockers when they go home.
Right now, we don't have any theft issues. It's better if it's in their pocket.
Maybe we gotta build a big wall out there. Everybody gets a certain spot in the morning, they put their thing in their spot, lock the door up until school's out, and it unlocks, and they pick their...
Darlington High School has a basket by the front office. When you walk in the morning, you can throw your phone in there. Most of the kids at Darlington High School keep it in their car because they're not going to do that because they don't want to be there.
I was just joking.
Yeah, no, but that's what Darlington High School does, and they're about our size. It works.
Well, the only follow-up, Jerry, is what you just said about the Civil Act of 1973 or whatever. This phone issue is a social problem. It is a major problem across everywhere, right? Because people are bullying, and I'm not sure the school's going to fix that. It's parents and the people who are the authority figure, and then when it gets elevated of issues, parents should talk to. I've been involved where I talk to other parents, and we resolve the issue reasonably well, and then two kids get along better. So I think, are you now asking the school to solve that problem?
No, I'm just saying you just remove the instruments that can cause that problem to happen.
Well, does it interfere with education? And it's almost impossible in some ways to police, because who's going to stand by the bathrooms?
Well, right, yeah.
And make sure they don't use it in the bathroom, or do we have somebody who can assign to the locker room to make sure they're not doing it?
The enforcement, I think, is hard.
I think the enforcement is hard. If there's one place that can be enforced consistently, it would be consistency in the classroom.
So to add to that, the one thing that I've seen that teachers have kicked around, and it's an idea that they can have their cell phones. You walk into a class and you put the cell phone. Like there's a place in the classroom for the cell phone. So, you know, they walk in and they turn it in. It can be visible. I've seen teachers use those shoe racks that are, you know, where the kids can see their phone so they don't think that their property is being taken from them. And when school is out, they go and get their phone, and it's the same process from classroom to classroom. So you're not taking their property from them, because that's what they feel the most, they're attached to their phones.
Yeah.
So there's ways to manage it in the classroom, because it does happen at Sevastopol. Kids are using their phones, you know, it's, you know, and it's a really challenge. I've talked with the teachers, and I've been, you know, walking through, and I have been a teacher here. It's really, really challenging to universally stop it. We can minimize it the best way that we can.
When we were interviewing and the water bottle issue came up, the water bottles in the classroom, Tara LeClaire, when they go into her classroom, you can have your water bottle, but you put it on this shelf over here, and if you need to get up and get a drink, you get a drink. But you're not keeping it at your desk so you can squirt your neighbor. So
That
that's,
power struggle just goes away. Just turn it in and then get it.
so maybe that's something you all
Also,
should
that's
think about.
individual teacher classroom management, just like discipline before we had water bottles and phones.
It's an idea,
It's
but that's the
classroom
most
management.
effective way that I've seen it happen.
So maybe that's something the administrative team can discuss as the principal comes on, and it might solve some of the classroom
It's a tricky
issues.
one.
Individual student.
Are there any other questions or comments about the handbooks? If not, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say to approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The 22-23 graduation date.
We approved the calendar for 22-23, but not the graduation date. If we use our 4 snow days, our last day of school with the students would be June 2nd. If we don't use them all, then like this year, we backed a couple off. We back a couple off again, so when would you like to set the graduation? We've been typically graduating 2 o'clock on Sundays. The Sunday before is, it's like Sunday the 4th this year, right? Yeah. Great, the last day of school is the 8th. If you use that, it would be on Sunday, May 29th would be graduation. However, that's Memorial Day weekend.
28.
Yes.
28th, I'm sorry, yeah, my calendar's got 29, but 28th is the Sunday, right. And I don't know how locked in we are onto a Sunday at 2 o'clock, but that's always been tradition here. But where would you like to put graduation on this calendar, knowing that the Sunday before the last day of school is Memorial Day weekend? And is Memorial Day weekend a big deal or not? It's probably.
I think that's what Sturgeon Bays have on their graduation.
They are this year. Yeah. And it's always been Sunday afternoon. I'm fine with
It's
whatever
been
you
Sunday
pick.
afternoon for a long time, but at one
I don't
point
think
it was
people don't want to
Saturday
have
nights.
Memorial Day weekend. I would maybe not recommend that, but that's one input.
Because
I think a lot of, that's their family weekends, and life's so crazy and busy, so it's their long weekend. Where hard workers are off that Monday, so they get a long weekend. So that's their first camping weekend, or their first, I don't know, boating weekend, or just, I'm gonna clean the house weekend. But, remember, one input, and I actually don't have a kid graduating next year, so.
I would not, well, they want you to ask the graduating class of 2023, they'd like to have their graduation on.
They'll pick the 14th of May.
The 4th is.
Yeah.
Okay, the 4th of June, or the
And they hit it,
23rd,
right?
or the 28th.
If no one else is a problem, do it.
Well, that's why I would run.
One upside is you get more family that might be willing to come.
You would get more
Because
family,
more
because
families can
traveling
travel,
to it.
so that's nicer.
The band usually plays in the Mayfest parade on that Saturday, so if they were in the parade on Saturday, then they got to play graduation on Sunday, that's
Yeah.
back to back for the band. But some people might say, well, that's a good thing, because the kids that are in the band are doing 2 activities in one weekend, rather than having 2 weekends tied up. I don't know what the right, there, any way we go, there's gonna be some
Some people
people.
that get married on a wedding night or a weekend like that. Just mess
They all
up
get
the
married
whole
in
holiday.
June, so.
What is the feeling of staff and students?
What do the staff rather do?
I just brought it here, I brought it here because staff doesn't pick graduation day ever.
I think, you know, it's one Sunday for a group, I don't know, where we have 50 graduates. We're not saying that every Sunday, you know, that your child's in school, that we expect you to be at a graduation ceremony. So it's a definite finite group that moves through and, you know.
So what I'm hearing the group say is they still like the idea of a Sunday. Sunday, okay, so then your choices are
Well, I would just recommend the 28th, because why keep the kids in an extra week just to,
I think the reason the 28th is that's Memorial Day weekend.
yeah, but why,
But
but
you
they
have
don't need to be
to,
here for
so
the.
can, you have to have the, I mean, can seniors be out that Friday and have the, graduation?
Be out,
You can have school a week and just come back for the graduation.
Yeah, I think I've seen the ceremony after the last day, hasn't
I
it?
mean, why do you have to, I mean, I agree when,
I think some colleges, you have finals even after graduation, or you have it after all finals are done, depends what college it is, right?
right, but I'm just saying why.
So you're saying
So
have the
school
kids.
gets out on Friday, you have to have it on Sunday, you have to follow it. So-
I don't remember getting out of school early when I was a senior. Did we graduate earlier than the rest of us?
I don't think.
That's how it's been done here traditionally.
If you had it on the Sunday in May, in Memorial Day, or weekend, those seniors aren't gonna come back here that week, if they're done.
they could be
Correct. This year, they're graduating on the 4th, they're not coming to school on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday that week. Right.
But they wouldn't be coming to school, they'd just be coming back on Sunday and the following week.
So you're saying the students.
I'm not saying you should, I'm
No,
just throwing it out
but
there.
in your example,
You would,
your example, the last day for seniors would be the
26th.
They'd have graduation on the 4th?
or still get out, what day did you say, they get out Memorial?
Days here, so it's Sunday the 28th is
So
Thursday.
you were thinking, you know.
If graduation was on the 28th, I'd say the 25th is your last day, because you don't come to school after graduation. It'll be a big deal if you're in the class of 2023 and you say, well, gee, the class of 22 got out 4 days early, and now I gotta stay all the way to the bitter end. But you
Oh,
can
we
have
saved them
that.
for snow days. We didn't take, I mean, if you, I'm sorry, right? We didn't give credit for snow days past graduating classes. We just started that.
Okay, so are we
I
saying
don't- I don't
graduation
care.
should be on Sunday, June, if we went Sunday, June 4th, then they could have their graduation practice on the 2nd, they could have their field trip on the 1st, and have their finals the 31st and 30th, right?
Sure,
Okay, so Sunday, June 4th at 2 o'clock.
sure.
I think that's the best.
Great.
Okay, who's making that motion?
Is there a motion for June 4th?
I move that we officially have high school senior graduation on June 4th.
I'll second that.
Questions or further discussion?
So I'm just thinking right then, they could have it on the 28th, I mean, they've met all their competencies and they're done. We're just holding them for another week. For the sake of holding them.
We're gonna do-
Because you don't want to upset some.
If we're doing it this way, then that Friday, the 2nd will be, Friday the 2nd will be graduation practice, the 1st will be their senior class trip, they'll have their senior activity night on the 2nd, it'll be fine, they'll grouse for a year, and then after.
The graduation, do it on Friday the 26th.
Well, that's the Friday of Memorial Day weekend.
Then do it on the Sunday.
How about the
The
21st?
motion on the floor is for the 4th of June, but you can be having your discussion.
Oh, yeah.
We have a motion on the floor.
Motion
But the only question is, that, wait, did we get a second already?
Yeah.
There's a second, so I'm
Discussion's okay.
taking questions and
So my only thing, the only hesitation I have is, you know, what is the requirements for classes? When are they done? What have we done typically? So as long as they've qualified they've met the state requirements, which I think they probably have all met long before then, actually. And then, I think in most cases, then what is we typically do? And I guess, what do other schools do? Do they not let them out early? I don't know.
Typically not that early, yeah. Right.
So then, all right, so I'm moving forward then, actually. I just wanted to ask.
The 4th, and what I see is on the 2nd is graduation practice, the 1st is, I'm gonna throw a wrinkle at you, 8th grade graduation's been typically the Monday after the Sunday graduation. Want that on the 5th then, even though we'll be out of school by then? 8th grade's gotta come back for graduation. That's fine.
Can you have 8th grade graduation before the high school graduation?
Absolutely.
And we're doing this for our convenience.
The motion to was as far as senior.
Senior graduation, the 4th at 2 o'clock.
I'm going to call that question All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
That motion is carried. Do you want to talk about 8th grade graduation at this point in time?
Oh, think
Or you want to take on
Take
it?
up another,
what?
this is for 23, right?
23, yes.
Yeah, we've got a little bit of time to screw on.
Sometimes you can't win. I know someone's yipping about that the high school, the 8th grade is right after the high school, the next day. I mean, so, right, yeah. Can't always win.
There's a lot of schools that don't do an 8th grade graduation,
Yeah.
but we do it here because it's tradition.
I've been hearing that a
I
lot.
think it's an important step for those kids, personally. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the middle school athletic eligibility policy, which was in our little packet. Athletic committee, do you have any?
High level, and then Keith very much clarify, but the only thing I would, unless you want to go first, is, my comment was, I don't, the idea with Brooke has been doing some research, and she is driving a lot of consistency, and she wanted some clarification, and that's, and in the discipline area, and I think we had a lot of discussion about that, and that's really what this policy captures at, and I know we can walk through all of it at the time, and we thought it was reasonable. But that, it does, there's discipline involved, right, folks? I mean, so that's what we're doing, is providing more consistency, and so then there'll be middle school kids will have more consistent discipline instead of we don't want a perception that, geez, Dick Weidman, so you're not getting penalized this time. We're just trying to make it clear that, hey, nope, this is what it is. You'll never get black and white, but a little clarification, I think, is where this is coming from.
What I appreciate about this one is the breakup of grades and behavior. And the academics in the middle school, you could have an F in one class and slide over to a different class and keep bouncing around, always carry an F, but always be able to play because it wasn't always the same class. And this way, in the green slip one, the green slip, interesting enough with middle school football last year, kids were okay with getting a green slip and going to green slip to do their work and then go to practice because all the conditioning for football was at the beginning of practice. So they go to green slip so they could avoid the push-ups and the running and the good stuff. Football coaches figured it out after a while and changed that at the end of practice, But yeah, you build a mousetrap that'll work their way around, but I do like the way this system is set up for grades and behavior, and I hope the athletic committee with Brooke Tank can work on one similar for the high school then, so it's kind of clear and concise, and there it is.
That was a good point on the green stuff thing. That was proper consistency there. And definitely kids. There was a lot of examples of how build a mousetrap, and they were consistent pretty well. And so this will clean that up. Thank you for clarifying.
Does someone care to make a motion on this middle school code of conduct?
Move to approve the middle school code of conduct as presented.
Second.
Does anyone have further questions or discussion on it? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. Athletic event workers and officials pay. Who would like to take that?
Well, the only thing is we're not getting people. I know like I was at the game tonight, and so, luckily my wife does that, and I'll do that for Brooke and all, whatever, but we cannot get parents to volunteer for these events. And it's also very burdensome to always have, the AD or certain teachers always fill these roles. So I think that was what this was, we were trying to find a way. And is this actually where we're thinking about charging a fee? The plan was to charge a fee for parents, because now you can get that fee back, because we've always never wanted to charge a fee for sports. But I think we wanted to say, it's bad enough now, this is an idea and a proposal to say, we're going to charge you a fee for these sporting events, but if you come and hold the chain for football or run the clock once for soccer, and it's not even just one time. I mean, my goodness, parents, we're asking, one time, one game, do something to help the athletic department run the event for your children. I think we thought that was reasonable.
And by doing that, if people choose not to, then $30 or whatever that fee is, some people will choose.
They won't get it back.
Some people may do it to pick up their, or whatever.
And there's always, this school's always recognized if someone comes in and says, you know, can't pay that fee, but I'll do this, well, then you could probably make that happen real quick, schedule it and be done with it. But the going in policy or plan would be, everybody pays a fee,
When they
and
sign
sign up, and you get your fee back.
That's one item. What we have here is the officials pay and event workers.
Oh.
But I know what you're saying, but yeah, that's still to come.
Yeah.
That's not on the agenda for tonight.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay, that's what we're looking at. We're not getting enough workers, so we're looking to increase the pay by $5 per event, basically, and officials as well. And, you know, officials, a SU report a couple months ago, that got short officials. I mean, it's, workers are, every industry's facing workers. I think I said that a half hour ago, right?
So,
Buses.
event workers separate from officials. Will the increase in pay make officials want to come here more than maybe go to another school?
Probably not, because we're geographically limited. You're not gonna get a soccer official from Appleton that's coming to Sevastopol because they can pick up games between Appleton and here. Yeah, but we at
Well,
least-
we're trying. That's
We're
what
trying,
the
we're
intent
trying.
is.
Right, we can't, I mean.
We don't
can't-
know.
So at least, it's gonna be nice, at least keep up with the times. We know gas is
Gas,
more
yeah.
expensive, so
Yeah.
giving them $5, $10 to keep coming here is appropriate at this time, so. Yes, and it may encourage some more staff or parents to say, yeah, I'll do work that, you know?
So then on the parent side, on the game worker side, are people not doing it because they're not getting paid enough, or they don't, are they too busy, or they say, I wouldn't know how to do that?
All the above.
I'm gonna say all the above.
Yeah, all the above.
Because they don't want to be doing stuff while their kids are playing, and then you got the people that don't want to do things when their kids are playing, and then they want to schedule when their kids aren't playing, and some people that want to be scheduled when their kids are playing, so they don't have to make an extra trip, and that kind of stuff.
The Mighty Pioneers
It's
have.
like my pioneers, we charge, this year we charged $50 a person, and then if you worked, you got your $50 back.
And you can work concessions, or you had different events too, like half marathon or
Yeah,
something.
any fundraiser, anything. You could, if you worked that, then you got your $50 back.
So.
And if you didn't wanna,
I
you
don't think
just
it's-
donated $50. And you said, don't put me on any list, keep my 50.
Okay, it's not that I'm against the pay.
Well, yeah,
It's just information for
Yeah.
me, so.
I would move to approve the athletic event workers and officials pay as presented.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Then we have the girls co-op soccer renewal with Gibraltar. And we're the lead,
For girls, we're
we're the lead team on that. So we look for a motion to approve that co-op.
I can make a motion to approve the soccer co-op renewal.
Now, second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
hold on one second. Chris, do you have a form for them to fill out, sign tonight?
Just you're the only one that needs to sign it.
Okay.
Look for a motion on Adam Lemke's resignation as middle school girls basketball coach.
I would move to approve the resignation of Adam Lemke, middle school girls basketball coach.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Resignation is Jason Berry as the assistant boys basketball coach.
Make a motion to approve the resignation of Jason Gray as the high school assistant basketball coach.
Now, second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Resignation of Mr. Lee Vandenhoven as a high school math teacher. Is there a motion to accept?
I would move to approve the resignation of Lee Vandenhoven, high school math teacher.
Second.
Questions or discussion, or Mr. Lemke, do you have any input there?
Yeah, Mr. Van Evenhoven This is his first year with us. He lived in Little Chute. He now lives in Hobart. His wife teaches at a Montessori school in that area. She just signed a 5-year contract. Lee told me he likes it here, but it's 2 hours in the car every day, and he got a job in Hobart. He says they spend $6,000 on gas a year, so it only made sense for him to leave us. He was looking for a place halfway in between, and with the housing market, he said,
It's not there.
no, it's not there. And we're gonna have more and more of this.
Are there other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. We then have the policy committee recommendations of the revised policies, which were wonderful reading material. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Do that.
Oh, I
The list of.
First meeting and I'm second.
Violence.
Bullying.
If I had my cell phone.
Do we need to read the whole paragraph?
Can I go to my safe space right now?
Do you have to read the whole paragraph and all the numbers and stuff? Is that what you've done in that?
I would say as presented. A motion as the policies as presented.
I made as approval of the policies as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Questions or discussion?
The only thing that should be noted is the policy committee did review all these.
So noted.
Yes.
Questions, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Then we have the first reading of a new policy, PO 6112, cash management of grants, and PO 8462.01, threats of violence.
I would motion to approve the first reading of policy PO 6112, cash management of grants, and PO 8462.01, threats of violence.
Second.
Questions or discussion?
Is the PO new right? I don't remember that. from offhand.
No, it's just that it doesn't have to be on there.
That's fine, okay, very good.
Hearing no questions or discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. That concludes our regular business, and the board will now convene to executive session. May I have a motion to do so?
I make a motion to adjourn to executive session.
Second?
Roll call vote, Sue.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried at 9:12 p.m. Thank you. Okay, we are in open session at 10:52 p.m. And I'll look for a motion on this.
9:52.
9:52, sorry, thank you. Look for a motion on the special education teacher.
Make a motion to approve the hiring of Christopher Traeger for Tarver for special education, special education teacher.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Math interventionist teacher.
Move to approve Emily Stouslin for the math interventionist.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Do we have a head cook?
Michelle.
Yeah, okay. Head cook?
I would move to approve Michelle Charles for the head cook position.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Jeff,
I'm sorry.
going too fast?
No.
Okay. The custodian?
Move to approve the hiring of Janelle Cadell.
Second.
90-day probationary period.
As a custodian position in a 90-day probationary period.
Was there a second to that?
Yes, I second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. The middle school, high school principal?
I make a motion to approve Troy Schaefer as the middle school, high school principal.
Second.
Questions or discussion?
I would just note the lack of high school experience for Mr. Schaefer, and hopefully he will be able to overcome that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Middle school boys basketball coach.
Make a motion to approve the hiring of Neil Fuller as the middle school basketball coach.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. We will have our next meeting on June 16th. In between there's high school graduation for anyone that's attending that. As far as diplomas,
Maybe for next month, he just reminded me, he said that the third Thursday of the month always runs into the school board convention, and then I always have a WASDA conference on the third Thursday of the month, so that's 2 of the 12 it doesn't work out for. Is there a better day of the week or time of the month for a meeting? We can discuss that next month, but just think about that. Would it be a different night of the week or a different week in the month that would be better than, I know volleyball season, you like to go to volleyball, and you like to see your grandsons play basketball. Natives had kids in sports, so
Could we move it up to Wednesday?
let's talk about that next month as an agenda item. I just want to put
We
that.
usually meet on Mondays.
well, we moved it because when Joe Majeski was here, he said, they came in Monday, now they've got a meeting, and then they have to get through the rest of the week. It was easier for he felt it was easier for the administrators to be ready on Thursday, and then they just had that one more day of school left. But those administrators aren't here anymore, so.
The districts I've been at have had Thursdays, Wednesdays, and Mondays. So let's put on the June agenda to discuss.
I mean, I just throw out Wednesdays because that's usually the church night, there's usually not
Right.
sporting events for I like to see my kid
Monday is a very
do
popular
things, so
board meeting night around the state.
Monday sometimes.
For schools. We'll talk about it. June board meeting, I got as an agenda item.
So anyway, who's ever going to graduation, or 8th grade graduation, we've got that. We'll have that on the next agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we are adjourned at 9:56
55.
p.m.